Guess what this means? We're going to Australia. I left my farm in Northeast Texas for Australia, and here's why. I'm often asked, does rotational grazing and raising sheep 100% on pasture work in desert conditions? To get the answer, I visited one of the driest states in the USA, then flew across the ocean to the driest inhabited continent on the face of the earth to bring you Raising Sheep on Pasture, Australia. The video upcoming is going to be a broad overview of the trip and the 3 stops that I made. The purpose of this trip was really to explore the implementation of the regenerative principles that I promote in an environment that is less than friendly. Each of these farmers is navigating in a dry environment and still doing so in a way that really benefits soil health and produces a highly marketable finished product. And what is more is that each of these farms has developed unique marketing streams. The unique marketing streams that are really and truly necessary in today's agricultural environment to make a success out of life in agriculture. This trip was made possible in part by your support of my book, The Basics of Raising Sheep on Pasture, where I take really all of the principles we're getting ready to explore, and in a photo educational way, I present them for those who are looking to launch their own sheep farming enterprise on 30 acres or less. Oh, and I can't forget, I bought one of you a souvenir. Wish I could bring back more. Each piece really represents one of the stops on the trip, and to win, please hit the thumbs up button on this video and comment down below with which of the 3 episodes you are most excited to see between now and December 10th. I will choose the winner after I release the final video in this series around December 10th. So I was actually able to travel with 3 of my siblings on this trip, and they helped me to film at each location. The trip started at the DFW airport, where we flew from Dallas to Los Angeles. We landed in Los Angeles and had a couple of false celebrity sightings, thanks to my younger brother, who was a little bit eager to see the rich and famous. Who did you just see walking
I just saw Matthew McConaughey driving down the street, and Oprah walking into the building right here. Well, I think she was losing some weight again. Oh yeah, there she is. Flash her real quick.
a woman. That's a man.
No, it's Oprah.
It's not Oprah.
That's Oprah over there.
And despite the temptation to stay and stalk celebrities, we exited Los Angeles pretty quickly. We drove to our first film location, which was in the Ojai Valley, about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles. I have an entire episode coming on the tour of the Shepherdess Land and Livestock contract grazing operation. While Cole Bush, who is the lead shepherdess at Shepherdess Land and Livestock, was not able to join us on the tour, her lead shepherd, Dylan, took us to 3 different locations where their flock is currently grazing. But a few of the highlights from this tour include how Shepherdess Land and Livestock uses small ruminants and targeted grazing to mitigate wildfire risk for communities in Southern California, how Shepherdess Land and Livestock actually gets paid to graze thousands of sheep in an area where land is probably the most expensive to buy in the entire country. And third, we talk about how Dylan has booted up a thriving direct-to-consumer forage-fed lamb business in the Ojai Valley in just 3 years after launching into agriculture himself. The full episode from Ojai Valley is scheduled to release around December 7th here on the channel, so be watching for it because there is so much amazing information. At each stop, I did a reverse book signing and asked each ranch manager to sign my book. And I am so excited to see how many signatures this copy will accumulate over the next few years. We had 1 extra day in Southern California, so we spent time enjoying our incredible accommodations, which is a huge shout-out moment for the generous sponsorship of the Ojai Retreat. The retreat is just a quick 1.5-hour drive north of Los Angeles. And we took the long way back to the Los Angeles airport down the iconic Pacific Coast Highway. inside scoop on our food issues during this trip. So I spent a lot of money on airfare and lodging so far. And so we've been on like a little bit of a food budget. So I went to Aldi's and I was like, okay, we'll have turkey sandwiches all day one day. And then I went to get some mayonnaise and mustard and they were like gonna be $6 and $7. Abel, he's a really practical guy. He said we could just eat them dry. Well, now I'm getting complaints because
It's choking.
because apparently dry turkey sandwiches are dry.
So what are you doing?
I'm putting hummus on my sandwich so I can pretend it's mayonnaise. So just a little bit, smear it a little bit on where you're gonna eat it next, and then just
Pretend it's mayonnaise.
Flight time from Los Angeles to Brisbane was 17 hours and 55 minutes with one layover in Fiji, which was pretty exotic. There were lots of guys in skirts. They served us 3 meals on board the planes, which really helped with our food budget, but really not enough to justify the acid indigestion they produced. So we opted out of airplane meals on the flight home. Then, after 17 hours and 25 minutes, we landed down under and took our first steps onto international soil. We broke into our food budget and tasted our first authentic Australian pies on Australian soil. We spent a few days on the Gold Coast before heading inland for our farm tours.
G'day, mate. 5 days into my Australia trip, and my accent has actually gotten worse. Cheers.
We headed inland, and the first stop was Millmerran at the incredible Bellevue Dorper stud. Sophie Curtis represented her family on the tour, and the Curtis family transitioned from a merino weather operation about 20 years ago to a registered Dorper stud. The transition was a smashing success in light of the failing value of wool as a commodity and the rise in the popularity of the Dorper as a shedding hair breed. A few of the highlights of this tour include seeing the Bellevue Dorper genetics that produce award-winning carcasses on forage only, watching the Curtis family masterfully coordinate their annual on-farm stud sale, learning how Sophie transitioned the farm from conventional to organic agriculture 15 years ago, and getting a look at what forages are keeping this flock in such amazing condition despite extreme drought wherein they have seen less than 8 inches of rainfall in the entire year. The full episode from Bellevue Dorper is scheduled to release December 1st here on the channel, so be watching for it because Sophie shares so much amazing information. Our final farm tour of the trip was Macintyre Brooke Lamb. The name of this farm manager was also Sophie. Sophie and her husband are first-generation farmers, raising Australian white sheep and marketing the meat direct to consumer. They began their operation in 2019, and they market and sell all of their lamb through their website and a newsletter, using a direct-to-consumer boxed lamb sales model. Amazingly, Macintyre Brooke sells out of its fresh boxed lamb every month. This is an incredible bright spot for Sophie and her family because between drought and inventory surplus, the Australian sheep industry is taking a huge hit in 2023. Some Australian ranchers are even citing that it's coming close to being more profitable to actually slaughter and bury their sheep than pay the transport fees to market. It's a very sad time to consider, but Sophie's direct-to-consumer lamb sales program has made way for consistency and stability in their income at a time where many are encountering anything but. The full episode from Macintyre Brooke Lamb is scheduled to release on November 24th here on the channel, so be watching for it because it's an absolutely priceless experience. Alright, so today is one of our very last days in Australia. We're headed out to Livington National Park to do a 10-mile hike. Our final experience in Australia was an incredible hot air balloon tour of the scenic rim, thanks to the generous sponsorship of Hot Air Australia. A breakfast at O'Reilly Vineyard followed, and it was just the most incredible cherry on top to the trip of a lifetime.